fortunate over the years to have covered some legitimately special athletes among the three teams that I cover. There might be another one on that list now. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning from Sarasota, Florida. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or hockey. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins that I hope you'll check out. Paul Skenes made his spring debut the first time he wore a Pirates jersey, and he didn't disappoint. It took him 10 pitches to go 3 up, 3 down on all three of the Orioles' young studs, including Adley Rutschman, although Rutschman gave his a ride to the deepest part of right center. 10 pitches, 6 strikes. 4 of those pitches came in at 100-plus miles an hour. There also was a curve, actually the first pitch of the game. There was a change. There was a slider. And you know what? If that's over-analysis of a spring outing, so be it. Because he matters, even if the setting doesn't and the circumstance doesn't. It's hard to describe the feeling that I had as someone who's followed this franchise for life when these pitches began to fly out of his hand. It's, how do I put this? Because I really don't want to overdo this. I'm going to try very, 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 very hard to not overdo this. But there are times in sports when you can see that someone is very, very, very clearly above the field, that they're playing on a different level, and that to an extent, everybody else who's out there is just ordinary, is just a guy. And I could start rattling off some names to you, but that's when you would really and rightly come down on me, because then I'd be taking it too far. But some of those names crossed my mind. So let me put this another way instead and kind of protect myself here from making a fool of myself. Paul Skenes can do things that other humans can't do. Yes, other humans have thrown harder. One of them happens to be on the Pirates roster. In fact, he's thrown harder than anybody ever, and that's Aroldis Chapman. Chapman was always a reliever. Chapman was always that guy who would come in and just throw flames for an inning, kind of like he is now. And for full context, Chapman's throwing 100 in this spring training as well. But that's not all that this is about. Skenes is a starting pitcher in every conceivable way. He's got the 4-pitch mix. He makes them work off of each other, as Henry Davis was explaining to me yesterday. He holds the pitches, as Henry further laid out, at different intervals, so the batter can't time what's coming from the hand, and the batter can't detect the difference between the pitches until it's way too late. And also, just for fun, Henry pointed out that Skenes has been working on a pitch called a splinker, believe it or not, split finger sinker, which Henry claims is going to set the baseball world on fire or something to that effect. And all of that put together feels, and here I go comparing him to other, but it feels unfair. It feels like he's that much better than everybody else. This isn't someone that you look at and go, man, what can go wrong here? This isn't somebody that you look at and go, he's going to have to go running and hiding from the Pirates instructional people because they can't screw him up. He is so strong-willed. It's something I've learned about him in the past week. So set on who he is, both in baseball and in life, that he's going to kind of float above this process. And if that doesn't make sense to you now, maybe it will later in the year once he's up in Pittsburgh and you get to see some of these results, as well as how others around him will respond to that. You want to know a phrase that I really, really, really hate? people will throw at me a lot whenever I get into talking about rookies or someone with a bright future. I really hate the phrase, pump the brakes. Mostly because I happen to exist as a pretty optimistic, hopeful person. So I don't like somebody telling me to not be that. But in this case, you're going to have to take my word for it for right now, since this wasn't on TV, this wasn't streamed, this wasn't anything, because the people at Major League Baseball have no idea what they're doing, and or it didn't involve the Dodgers or Yankees. But if you were one of the 4,592 people in attendance at Ed Smith Stadium yesterday, you wouldn't be pumping anybody's brakes, including your own. In fact, you'd be wanting to just pound on that gas pedal. And I asked Skenes, maybe because it was on my mind, how much he looks forward to the day when he isn't just going out there for an inning or a handful of pitches the way he did over those 3 or 4 minor league appearances that he made last summer. Like, he pitched in Altoona for like about 5 minutes. They took him to Erie. He pitched for like 3 minutes. And you hear this whole thing didn't last much longer than that. Anyway, this was what he said.
How much are you looking forward to the day when you can start like throwing real games again, as opposed to all the 10 pitches, 6 pitches in Erie, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got mixed feelings on that. I'm glad it's quick innings, but I wish it were more, for sure.
Hasn't yet pitched a game above Double-A, and he's comfortable saying something like that. That's not somebody who's going to be stepped on by anybody. When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern, that's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from Dave, who says, DK, I just don't understand the thinking around Henry Davis. How can sending him back to AAA at this stage help him? Shouldn't they find out if the kid can hit and then find a spot for him somewhere on the field, whether it's catcher, first base, or right field? Dave, I'm going to be a little bit biased right now because this week has been a very, very good one for Henry. And you know how it's human nature to be more focused on the most recent thing you've seen or felt. And Henry looks to me right now not only like someone who could hit in the majors and hit really well. I mean, that home run yesterday was, boy, did he crush that. And you can talk about spring training all you want, but that was Corbin Burns throwing that ball. Moreover, and maybe more to the point, as it relates to what the Pirates have been saying about Davis, his catching has looked fine. I don't know that it's great. I don't know that it's better or worse than Yasmani Grandal's, though. And if you're thinking about Henry more from the long-term perspective, meaning if you're the Pirates and thinking that way, then you're not all in on 2024. And I might be saying by the end of spring training that that'll apply to Paul Skenes as well. I'm sitting on a fence there as it relates to both of them, because I value, and I think the Pirates should value, what they'll get long term out of a 1-1, whether that's Henry or Skenes or whatever. But I also feel like if you're going to do that, you have to have reason to do it. You have to have a real reason to do it. Think of it this way. But set aside Henry for just a moment and go back to Skenes. Let's say that the reason that you don't want Skenes in the majors to start off, and this has been the one thing I've sided with them on, is that he'd be going from a workload at LSU of pitching once a week, just like they all do in college, to having to be ready every 5 days, right? Isn't that how rotations work? Well, no, they don't have to. You can find different ways to set up a rotation where Skenes only takes the ball once every 6 days or once every 7 days. You can move things around in the rotation. You can have a bullpen game here or there. Now, in parentheses here, you know and I know they're not going to do that because sending Skenes down saves money in the long term, Super 2 arbitration, blah, blah, blah. But if they weren't the Pirates, they could find a way to adjust his schedule so that there'd be a smoother assimilation from college to the majors, thus stripping away any actual reason that you'd have to send him back. In Henry's case, the only apparent reason, especially since he spent most of the 2023 season in Pittsburgh, to send him back would be that you want him to develop some sort of higher bar for his catching skill set. But if you're looking at him now and he's not like killing you and you're not seeing that he's, say, struggling at receiving the ball, struggling at reading the base paths, you know he's not going to struggle to throw with that 80-grade arm, not working hard enough with the pitchers, not communicating with them, not getting the best out of them when it comes to game calling, although a lot of that's handled by the dugout now anyway. Here's what I'm saying. If these two guys can help the team at the start of the 2024 season, and there's no actual reason to send them back, then you keep them, presuming you're serious about the 2024 season, as you claim to be. If there are real reasons to send them back, and you do send them back because of longer-term goals for one or both, then you have to make that clear. You have to stop pretending that the 2024 season is what you're all about. I appreciate the question. As you can tell, I'm sitting right in the middle. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Pirates, but especially this week in doing all these shows from down here in Florida. We will be back with another episode Monday.